Hey there, welcome to a new video on the Learn APL with Neural Networks series. In this video what we will do is take a look at how to interpret the output of the network in terms of digit classification. So we have this network that produces digits and we have to understand how that will work. And in order to do that we will talk a little bit about the actual network output and about grade down, so the grade down primitive. So if you are both familiar with the grade down and how to use the network output to classify the digits, then you can skip this video. Otherwise, let's just quickly go over it. Now the thing that we want to do is I want to take a look at the so there's nothing wrong about it. It was just a bunch of recordings for this series. So I want to take a look at the path where my data is, and I want to read some data. So let me use quad CSV. Let me read just some rows. I don't need many rows. Sure, actually 100 would also have been fine. So test CSV, and now let's let quad CSV guess the encoding, and let's say it's just digits that I want. So now I have some data with me. Now what I can do is let me take, so the first image is actually a 7. So this is the very first element in data. And now the pixels that correspond to this 7, how can I get them? Well, I can say, so the pixels or the inputs to the network is going to be anything but the first element of the first row of data. What's the shape of imp? Whoops, what did I do? Yeah, of course, so this is the first row, but this is a one row matrix, so let's make it a vector. Yeah, okay, now this is a vector with all of the digits in there, and now I can create this network with the shape that I want, and now I can feed it the input, right, with the forward pass. And this gives, whoops, yeah, sorry, I forgot about something. Yeah, so the input should be a column vector. Yeah, so this is fairly long. I should have saved that. So this is the output. Now the thing on the left is the input, so I can just not worry about it, and let me show you the things that are produced. And this is the final network output. So actually what I want to show you is the final network output. Now taking a look at this, how do I know what's the digit that the network is trying to classify? What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this as being like the luminosity values of light bulbs, and I want to pick the brightest light bulb. So I need to find the maximum of these values and then pick its index. And in this case I can see that I have a 0.97 here and a 0.95. So the 0.97 is the largest one, and it's at the 0th row. So this is the 0th row, and therefore this network that we just created thinks that this input, which actually corresponds to a 7, so this actually corresponds to a 7, but it thinks that this input corresponds to a 0 because the value at the index 0 is the largest one. So how do we compute this programmatically? Well, it's simple. We use the grade down primitive. Now the grade down primitive is in the APL shift 3 key, and it's also over here, and it looks like this arrow pointing down, and it's related to the arrow pointing up. Now what does this arrow pointing down do? It's used to order things in a descending fashion, and when you give it some argument, for example 10, 3, 20, what this gives is, it gives me indices that would reorder this into descending order. Okay, so these are indices, and what it tells me is that the largest element is in index 2, the second largest in index 0, and the smallest in index 1. So if I type something like, let's take omega and let's index it, or index into it, according to what the grade down gives. and if I type in some vector, it orders the vector in descending order. And I'm pretty sure you can guess, if I swap it with grade up, it grades it, it orders it in ascending order. Now the cool thing about this is that I can actually apply this grade down to this column vector. And now it's ordering the rows in descending order. So if I do the following, if I do the whole thing indexed by the grade down of the rows output, it's going to, sorry about that, it's going to reorder the rows. But I don't need to reorder the whole thing. So when I do this, I know that the first element there is the index of the row with the largest element. So if I do if I pick the first of the grade down, then I know automatically that my network thinks that this image was of a 0. Yeah? So this is exactly what we are going to do. We are going to use first of the grade down to figure out what the network thinks we are looking at. So I hope this made sense. Feel free to play around with grade down and grade up, because in the beginning they can be very confusing because they don't order things, they just give you the indices that would order things. And when you are comfortable enough with grade down and grade up and all of this, then join me in the next videos as we continue our journey. Bye.